So, oh yeah. Oh yeah, Geek Tangent. What do you say we do a little bit of Geek Tangent?
Okay, why not?
Okay, cool. That sounds good. Who we got here today? I'm Chris. Who else is here?
This is Keith.
And yeah, all right. So
welcome to the Keith and Chris show.
Welcome to the Keith and Chris. We're rechristening it Keith and Chris. No, Chris and Keith, not
Yeah,
Keith and Chris. Let's get it right.
Well, the Chris and Keith show has been on, but not available for about 30 years, give or take.
I was thinking the same thing.
We just haven't been recording it the last 30 or so years until now. So
yeah, we're kind of doing you all a favor. You don't hear all of our stupid brain drippings over time. But here we are. We find ourselves with another episode of Geek Tangent with half of the crew gone. They both have pretty darn good excuses.
Stefan's in fucking Hawaii, dude.
Stefan is fucking Hawaii, I know. And Doug just got back from Amsterdam, and he's trying to sort of get back into the swing of things. So I was joking. Doug is back, and I saw him today, and it suddenly occurred to me, like, you know what? Episode number 6, all we're going to do is talk about you guys traveling.
Right.
You and I are going to just sit back and go, hey, we've been doing all the heavy lifting while you're gone. We're just going to sit back and listen to you guys tell us about shit you did.
Yeah. So what else did you do? And then what? Then what?
You keep talking. I'm just going to go get another beer.
Yeah. If I know we've given out Twitter handles and, an email and all that stuff. If you folks knew Stefan personally and were friends with him on Facebook, you'd be seeing all of these ridiculous pictures from Hawaii. It's really it's a beautiful place.
It's funny. I was watching some movie last night at home here with my wife, and I was surfing around on Facebook on my iPad, and she had posted a big clump of pictures, and I'm sitting there over on my side of the couch, slowly groaning.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What's going on over there?" And we have an Apple TV, so I flicked it up on AirPlay, and we just flicked through the pictures, and we're both sitting there going, "Oh man." Yeah. Definitely not where we're getting here up in the Northeast right now.
Did you get the new Apple TV, or did you get an old one?
Yeah, I had a Roku for a while, which I really liked. We had a Roku 3, kind of a bare bones system, but it worked really solid. And when they announced the latest Apple TV, I had a moment of weakness because it had you can talk to it and stuff like that.
No, they improved it. That's why I was asking. Yeah.
They did in some ways. It's decent overall. They've added the ability to add apps and stuff like that. And, I've tried a couple of games on it. I'm really not interested in playing games using the stupid little Apple remote.
I was going to say, if only you had a machine that was dedicated to playing games somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll get to that a little bit later. I think the interface kind of sucks. Yeah. It's a little too wispy. I don't know if you've seen screenshots of it, but it's kind of cloudy looking and pastel-y color. And it's like, really? Come on, give me a break. I'll tell you, my big complaint is the remote. The remote is this very thin, sleek thing, and it's all matte black, and the buttons are evenly spaced on it. So 90% of the time I pick it up and I've got it backwards, but I can't tell because there's no indicator, which is stupid.
Yeah.
And I also find I miss the audio output jack on the Roku. So you could actually plug in a headphone into the remote and watch something, and it'll automatically cut off the sound, which is actually a really nice feature.
That is a nice feature.
So on the plus side, we get the AirPlay, which is kind of cool because we're both always, surfing on our devices while we're sitting on the sofa. And it's nice to be, one of us starts laughing about something. It's nice to be able to throw it up on the TV. What a first world problem, for fuck's sake.
Oh, yeah.
But, it's okay. I do have moments where I'm like, I'm almost tempted to go back to the Roku, to be honest. But
I looked at all these things, and I ended up with again, as we've discussed, you're an iOS person, an iPhone person, your whole life, and so you have Apple TV. I got a Chromecast, and after about a week of having it, I went and got a second one. Yeah, and now I need a third one. I need it on I need it on every TV.
Well, they're not very expensive. They're like $35 or something like that. Yeah, which is like a no-brainer. You can't lose. Who cares if it isn't perfect? But I've heard sort of mixed things about how it works. How does it work for you?
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. And it works. I installed there's a Chromecast app, of course, and you can customize it. If you're not broadcasting or streaming anything to the TV, it'll just do a slideshow. Well, if you want, you can customize it to your own slideshow and send it to your Google Photos or whatever.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is cool. I don't fool with that kind of stuff. But so you set up the app. And
oh no, I didn't want you to show those pictures. Oh shit, right, my in-laws are over.
But I'm sure that's happened to people, by the way. But
oh my god, that would be Anyhow,
yeah. Lock down that Instagram, kids. So anyway, So once you have it open, like basically anything that streams, it'll play it.
Yeah.
So
but it's dependent on your mobile device, right? Like there's no direct interface. You're doing it all from the phone or the tablet, and it's sort of passing the video through the mobile device, right?
Yep. It's your mobile device actually receives it, and then it talks to your home network. Yep. So it's a combination of whatever your mobile device is and your Wi-Fi. But with that said, I've used it with a tablet all the time. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is my Android tablets, I had to install the Chromecast app. Mm-hmm. On my iPad. No, it just finds it and streams it.
Never. It must be using the same protocol that AirPlay uses, basically.
I guess, yeah.
Let me ask you this: when you like on your phone, if you start to stream something to the Chromecast and midstream, I think I just burped as I said that. Sorry. If you midstream, if you like move away from whatever the video player is using on your phone, does it keep playing, or does all of a sudden it show you? Okay, so I'm wondering. I've never taken the time to look this up to find out, but it seems to me like you use your mobile device to initiate the stream, but really what you're doing is you're telling the Chromecast, okay, here's the URL of the stream I want you to start, and then the Chromecast grabs it directly, I wonder.
I suppose that's true. I've never, I've actually tested this sort of thing. Like I've had Netflix up on my phone or a tablet, and I've left the house to see like what the range is. Like my phone, I know it'll switch to the 4G or whatever, and I'll pick it up. But like my tablet is Wi-Fi only, just to see like how far can I go. Mm-hmm. And basically, if I'm on my property, if I'm in my yard, it's I have a regular.
That makes sense.
Quarter acre like anybody else. I can stream anything just fine. Whatever. If you boost your Wi-Fi signal, I guess you'd get more. But but I've had it. So you'll have the Chromecast app up and pull up Netflix or whatever and start streaming, and then you can close it and read your email, and it'll keep streaming. Like you don't.
That's what makes me think what it's doing is not using your mobile device as sort of the brains of the operation, but rather just the initiation point. At which point, one of these days I should just get off my ass and read about it, I guess.
There's something I've been meaning to ask you that's sort of, again,
7 inches.
We're not recording this yet, are we?
No. Oh.
So so we whatever, we use different softwares to record and do the show. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we use is Skype. Whatever, if you kids want to know how to podcast, you can shoot us an email, contact@geek-tangent.com. And you can ask us, how we do this, and we'll tell you. But one of the things I find interesting, Skype, that we use mostly just for the video so we can see what the hell we're doing. It lists like other devices in my house accessible to Skype, i.e., my Amazon Echo shows up on Skype. I always wondered, does yours show up there?
No. That's got to be a Windows Mac thing. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
What would the point of that be?
I don't know. Or maybe Amazon wants to listen in on conversations that Microsoft is privy to with Skype.
Well, that's probable. That's really weird because I don't see anything in the Skype interface, either during a live call or in the preferences, that says anything about detecting, home networkable media devices.
Yeah.
Clearly,
and I'm looking at my Skype contacts over here, and right under Doug Parrish is Echo/sound test device, and it's checked on. Well, because I know the Echo is on.
Really?
We just use it. Yeah, I've always wondered if anyone. I guess you're the only other person who has an Amazon Echo.
Which, interestingly, quick sidebar, they finally enabled Nest compatibility. I can't remember whether or not you've got a Nest, but
I don't. But yeah, I just saw that this week, and I looked at Stephanie, and I was like, wow. They only just added this. It didn't have Nest before.
Like this is something they should have been pushing to have like week 1, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, again, they continue to add stuff. They added, we were talking about it'd be nice if it would read like a recipe to you as you're doing it line by line, and it kind of does. It'll read a book from your Kindle, and I use the Kindle and I have it on everything and all this.
Yeah.
But guess what? It'll read it to you in a monotone, like no inflection.
So it's putting you to sleep.
Yeah, it'll turn the most interesting book into a VCR operation manual. Like, yeah. So it isn't perfect, but so anyway, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
We
we are recording, aren't we?
Yeah, and we actually had an outline of shit we were going to talk about, and none of it involves what we've talked about for the last 5 times.
Yeah, we're pushing the tangent name a little bit far, but that's okay. You know what? That's what happens when you only get two of us and nobody else to rein us in for a little while.
Exactly.
This is going to be the minutia episode, basically.
Yeah. So speaking of minutia, this week drinking. Don't tell me it's a brown ale. Oh, it's Natty Greens.
Nice.
Made right here in North Carolina, up in Greensboro. Yeah, Natty Greens, Old Town Brown. Good.
Nice. I wanted to ask you, you recently posted a video on YouTube, and kids, if you haven't checked it out yet, you should check out his channel. He posts some cool stuff every once in a while. He's a little, we're going to talk for a moment like he's not here listening to us, but he's a little erratic about his posting. He was doing a very cool series about refurbing a Flying V copy guitar, which last I heard he still hasn't quite finished. So I got to razz him about that. And you might even find a video of the two of us up there somewhere doing some guitar tomfoolery. But most recently, he posted a video. Actually, Keith, I don't quite know how to find. You just search for Keith Dooley on YouTube.
Yeah. Just open up YouTube and type in Keith Dooley, and you'll find. You're going to get a bunch of hits for Geek Tangent.
The party will begin.
Yeah, but actually, I've done it. I've done the YouTube ego search, and almost the entire first page of hits is all me.
That's more Keith than any human being can handle.
Yeah, and actually, I'm always surprised. I don't know if you ever do an ego search on the internet. Actually, I've done a Christopher Scott and
with a Christopher Scott name, like,
dude, you're screwed.
Yeah, I know.
You're screwed because there are famous people with your name, but they're like famous people not on my or your radar. I'll give you one. Like we were talking a few months ago, we had the Super Bowl, blah blah blah. There's a guy who plays for the Carolina Panthers named Christopher Scott.
Really?
Yes.
You've discovered my alter ego finally.
Oh, or this one. So I did, whatever. So I do the Geek Tangent YouTube page, and I'll, tag it with stuff that we've talked about, whatever. But you can also search by any of our names. If you type in Stefan Zielinski, if you can spell it, Polish names are tough.
Good luck.
But but if you can spell Stefan Zielinski, you're going to get a hit on YouTube for Geek Tangent.
Yeah.
So, but if you type in Christopher Scott, at the very bottom of the first page, you do see some Geek Tangent stuff. But way above that, famous, not famous to you and me, but famous to some people, a choreographer. He did Dancing with the Stars more than once, Christopher Scott. So,
I remember there was a period of time, this is probably like 5 years ago, I think I did do an ego search at some point, and somewhere pretty close to the top, if I recall correctly, there was like a gay male porn star.
Yep. That's when you're in college for a while.
That's me. Yeah, well, you got to pay the bill somehow.
Needed the cash. I remember doing an ego search. I mean, this was Alta Vista might have still been a thing. Okay,
like
that's how long ago it was.
The dog pile.
And I found myself. I found a couple posts I wasn't aware of. There was an ancient AOL website that I had. It might still be out there, by the way, years after my AOL was deactivated.
I'm totally gonna go find this. Man.
Yeah, there was a website. By the way, it was for my second solo album that you can't buy anywhere. I can only give it to you, and you don't.
Arthur Deadband. Anyway. Send one of us $10 and we'll send you a copy.
Yeah, no, it was Apocalypse City, which is even worse.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so there's a website for that on AOL. At least there was for years. Anyway, it might still be out there.
Before it got migrated to GeoCities.
Yeah, there's a no prize if someone finds it. I'll give you something. I don't know, out of my closet or something. I don't know, but anyway, yeah. So I had done an ego search years and years ago, and I found another guy, an architect, Keith Dooley, AIA. It's like, oh shit, like really? We don't operate in any of the same states, but like we're closer. I think he was in like West Virginia,
Some copyright infringement there somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go and reel it back for a sec. Still on the YouTube topic, but the reason why I brought this up because you very recently, we're going to have to like come up with some canned sound for when somebody goes so far off the rails.
I know. Anyway, can we still edit this?
Yeah, really. So YouTube, you recently posted a video about a beer that had been packed away for 10 years or something like that. And you were like, yes, I drank it. And then you showed it, but you didn't really talk too much about it.
I didn't realize it until after I posted it. I was like, I didn't really tell you very much. Just, hey, here's your
chance. Here's your chance. Go.
Okay, so there's a brewery in London called Fuller's. I first found this years ago. You can get London Pride, which is they also import an ESB, which is a particularly British thing, an extra special bitter. So anyway, I was at a grocery store that doesn't even exist anymore. Lowe's Foods. They pulled up shop and moved out of town and sold all their stores to a local chain here, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it was kind of a higher end, sort of like a Whole Foods market kind of place. And I used to go there and just like, spend $10-12 on a block of cheese and a whole bunch of like expensive beer and crap just because I could. And so one of the things I got, Fuller's, they made a vintage ale, and it comes in a box and everything. They're numbered. They make they're making more and more all the time. But the 2005 was the year I bought it. They made about 95,000 bottles. I had a bottle somewhere in the middle of the run. Not that it matters. And so it's a bottle conditioned ale, which means when you make the beer, generally when they make beer, like all of the fermentation happens in a big old tank, and it gets pasteurized and all this. Well, some places don't, some places do, whatever. But then they bottle it, and that's it. So it's like wine, whiskey, these kind of things. They age from the wood that they're contained in. You can have Scotch, in a bottle, and it's 10 years. That doesn't mean shit. The 10 years, it's aging in an oak barrel. That's the aging that counts. So generally, beer, you want to drink it fresh, like it's Budweiser, it puts born on dates. People put dates on them, and then after so long, you're supposed to throw them out. Well, bottle conditioned ales, what they do is they add a little bit of yeast at the end, and sometimes a little bit of hops or a little bit of sugar, so the yeast has something to eat. And basically, it will continue to age and make the spirit stronger. And as a result, you end up with some really strong beer. So they suggest, for legal reasons, you age it for like 2-3 years. And I'm so glad we have video going right now that no one can see but me. So they say it'll age for like 3 years, and then after that, you're on your own. The truth is, it does keep aging. I think they just have to say that for, I don't know, sanitary or other health code type reasons, whatever. But so I had this thing down for a little over 10 years. And I knew I was saving it for a special occasion, and whatever. And in the last month, I started a new job, and that was, sort of my occasion to celebrate. And then, bang! I opened this sucker, and man, it was so good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to find this stuff again, unless I can find like a really high-end bottle shop, which I know there's one in Asheville, North Carolina, called Brews and Ales. Get it, Brews and Ales, but it has like 2 boxing gloves on it, Brews and Ales. And I've found shit like that at that place before. I actually have, it's another British old prize ale. I forget who made it. I want to say Magnuson, but it's not.
Tell me about the beer. How was it?
Super rich, like heavy, a little bit sweet and very strong. Like it already was like 9 or 10% alcohol.
Oh,
and it continued to get stronger over 10 years. So, basically I had a pint and I was feeling buzzed.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was a good buzz. Super smooth, like a caramel finish. Maybe you have to like British ales like I do. They tend to be a little more on the bitter side. It's the British who invented IPAs. So yeah, it was very good, and I highly recommend it. Fuller's Vintage Ale. They make it most years. I think they made one this year. Let me know if you know where to find it, because this was the only time I ever saw this stuff, and it was great.
Sweet. I went to a local beer place over in Cambridge a couple of nights ago with a couple of buddies of mine. One of whom is actually going to be in the podcast in the not too distant future, and he's a big beer dude. And John Harvard's Brew House, right in the heart of Harvard Square.
Oh, cool.
And I caught up with him. We had a picture real fast, and I'm blanking on the name of it. I thought it was Bee Hoppy, but I just now realized that that's a Wormtown Brewery thing, and that wouldn't be John Harvard's. But I'll have to look up the name and throw it up in the notes or something like that. But it was one of those. It was a pretty damn high alcohol content. And I'm like, I'm just going to hang out and have a beer or two and then head home. I had 2. And I'm like, as I'm going home, I wasn't driving yet. I'm like, oh God, I feel like I've been drinking all evening. Jesus. Yeah. You know, the other, speaking of beer, since we're on the topic, one of our favorite topics.
Never comes up. Yeah.
No, I know. So this is a bit of a tangent, but I'm going to throw this out there real fast in case anybody happens to live in the Boston area, which if you haven't figured out after listening to a few episodes is where I am.
Most of the show,
Yeah, pretty much. I'm actually in Somerville, which, for those of you who don't know, is the city immediately north of Boston. It's at risk of sounding snobby about it. It's sort of the Brooklyn of Boston, essentially. A little more funky, a little more grubby. Lots of interesting things going on in Somerville. And I'm in a portion called Winter Hill, which, if you know anything about Whitey Bulger, or you saw the movie Black Mass, you probably know something about Winter Hill. And Winter Hill is an interesting area, but one of the things it lacks is sort of stuff in the immediate area worth going to visit. It's sort of a good area to get to other spots, but the main street. Anyhow, long story short, for the past year or so, there's been a pair of guys who have been rehabbing a small shop in our immediate neighborhood. They're called Winter Hill Brewery Company, and we've been waiting forever for them to open, like literally a year. And everybody's been watching with bated breath, because not only does everybody around here love beer, but we're looking for something kind of nice. And they've been doing a great job in the interiors and everything.
Looks great, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just fucking thrilled that they finally opened up a day or two ago, and they've started with some breakfast service where they're, serving scones and some coffee and stuff like that. And they're actually starting beer and dinner service tomorrow night. And I went there. I literally got up earlier than I usually do this morning so I could walk up the street and go get a goddamn coffee and a scone from that place. And they did not disappoint. It was really good. The place looks great. I'm psyched. We're going to try and get in there this weekend and give them as much of our money as we possibly can, because we want these guys to succeed.
Dude, the decor looks really sweet.
It's a cool, funky space.
Like, multicolored, like stone tile.
Yep.
They had raw concrete counters, lots of like raw exposed wood. So it had like this mix of like warm, natural meets industrial kind of. It's a great look.
Yeah, it's very cool. They're active online. If you're interested in checking them out, you can find them on Twitter at Winter Hill Brew. That's probably the best place to check them out at this point. My wife and I have met the one of the co-owners once or twice. His name's Jeff, and he's a super nice guy. And just from casual conversations with him and reading about interviews he's done online recently, these guys are clearly very committed to the Winter Hill area, and they're hoping that they can sort of be sort of a toehold in the area to help bring better businesses and more proactive
Here
stuff
comes
into
the
neighborhood.
area.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully,
so we're crossing our fingers and wishing them the best of luck. I'm just dying to try out their beer, and I'm hoping that after all this so far, like how long it took them to get here and how great it looks inside, and they got good coffee and they got good scones, and then I just hope the beer doesn't suck ass.
Right. Yeah.
So hopefully we're going to check it out this weekend, but we're really crossing our fingers for those guys, and we're hoping that they're going to be sort of the start of more things to come. So maybe I'll give you a quick report back next time we record an episode and tell you how Winter Hill Brewing Company's beer is. But
I hope to hear good things, because I have a trip planned to come up to Boston in May.
Yes.
So, hopefully.
Yeah, totally going to drag you guys over there when you come up. So for better or worse. Anyhow, so what else you got going on? I seem to recall you saying something about seeing a certain musician lately.
I did. Last week, I went to see Joe Satriani for what had to be the 5th or 6th time, at least. Actually, I was sitting there with my wife. She's been to see Satriani like 3-4 times with me by now. And I was just kind of looking. I was like, geez, I wonder, have I seen Satriani more times than Rush? And I sat there and did the math, and then I started laughing. I was like, oh, no. I've seen Rush way more times. Every time they've been on tour since 1985, with the exception of Test for Echo.
Yeah.
And that's when they almost broke up. So that's when I vowed I will never miss another show. So I've done crazy shit, like I flew from Miami to Boston so I could drag Chris to go see Rush on Vapor Trails.
Yep.
Because they only, like, the farthest south they were going on that first leg of the tour, the only leg of the tour at the time, was like Washington, D.C. They are a northern band. And there's been tours like that, like Hold Your Fire. My friends in Miami were like, these guys haven't been here since Grace Under Pressure or something. They just did not come to Miami for a couple of tours.
Yeah.
So whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I saw Satriani again. He's touring with a band he stole, basically. It's the rhythm section of a band called the Aristocrats. Mm-hmm. They're a British band that basically backs up Guthrie Govan. And Guthrie Govan will do, if you haven't heard Guthrie Govan, you should. He's a crazy guitar player who seamlessly mixes country, blues, jazz, rock within the same song. Like to him, it's all just techniques, and it doesn't
That's
matter.
cool.
So in the middle of a country song, you'll have like these crazy jazz chords, and then, like a heavy metal run, and then it'll go back into country. It's like, what is he all over the road? But anyway, the guy's brilliant. He just found this band sort of by accident. Marco Miniman and Brian Beller, and a great backing band. They all just hit it off. I don't know how Satriani came across these guys, if it was one of his G3 teaching tours or whatever the hell, but he's toured with them for a couple of tours now, and brought them in to record the last album. He's kept Mike Keneally on, who is an old Zappa guy who I've seen Mike Keneally 3 times now. I saw him play with Steve Vai, and he whatever.
He's like the professional sideman now, basically.
He is, but I mean,
a great gig to get if you can get it.
Yeah, but I mean, the reason why though is I watched him play. The audience is listening. Whatever, it's Steve Vai song. It's got these super fast, crazy runs in it. He harmonized with Steve Vai, like some of the fastest, craziest stuff in that song. I was like, oh my, I didn't know another human could play that. And Mike Keneally, by the way, is big, huge, chubby guy. Like, does not look rock and roll. He's all like gray, but. Whatever.
Yeah, he's kind of pulling a Jay Mascis at this point.
Yeah. But I mean, he's got the chops, and he's playing keyboards and everything. It was a great show. It kind of bums me out whenever I go to these things. I'm one of the youngest people there. I'm in my mid 40s.
Yeah.
You see the occasional high school kid, and it's like, well, that's yay, good. I mean, but then my wife is like, maybe just his dad is dragging him here. His dad, who's your age, is just dragging his son. Like, you're gonna like this shit. Trust me. It's like, damn it, that may be true. Lots of guitar nerds. I ended up, talking with 2 nerds next to me and 1 nerd in front of me. In between, they do a little intermission halfway through the show because these guys are pushing 60. They're getting old. They're not going to be on stage a whole 2-3 hours. And yeah, whatever. It was a great time. Beautiful venue. They built like a museum and arts district in downtown Charlotte. And it all just boom appeared since like 2007, 2008. Steph and I had been to this theater once before, the Night Theater in downtown Charlotte, to see Chris Cornell on one of his acoustic tours.
Yeah, I've been there, done. Chris Cornell, great guy when he's with a band. Not so great when he's solo, generally speaking.
Yep, I tend to agree. And
anyhow,
yeah, that's another story too. But yeah, it was a great show. It was a good time, and cool. I look forward to seeing him again.
Yeah, I'm sure he can always bring it. I've seen him a couple of times, and he was playing up here just a night or two. Am I confusing bands? No, I'm pretty sure a night or two after he was up here in Boston. Actually,
yep, that's right. Yep,
the dude's making the run as fast as he can.
Yeah, I think it was last Friday he was up in Boston. But yeah,
cool.
It was not long after he was here. Yeah, I saw that.
Sweet. My my latest obsession, speaking of things going on this week, since you were talking about the show, I got in my hands just this afternoon. So this is Thursday the 31st, and I got myself an iPhone SE, which I want to talk about for just a moment.
Oh, sure.
So, as you mentioned earlier that I'm sort of a Mac fan. And honestly, I'm old enough now that I don't have anything against Windows machines, but yeah, I am sort of generally Mac centric, and I've always been an iPhone user. And
you were an Apple person before Mac existed. I'd like to point that out.
Apple II Plus. That's how old we are. Thanks for reminding me.
I remember you almost bought a Lisa. Go ahead and Google that. The Apple Lisa. Chris almost bought one.
Yeah, back when they were really cheap.
Yeah, when Steve Jobs left Apple the first time and he started Next Computer.
Yep. It
took a few years, but eventually Chris had a Next Computer in his house.
I still kind of wish I had that, even though it wouldn't do it. Anyhow, so God, good memory, Jesus.
So like I said, we've been doing this show for about 30 years. So
yeah, just not recording it. So my latest phone has been an iPhone 6S, which I upgraded to from my 5S because whatever, it was time kind of thing. And I knew that everybody knows, of course, the 6 series is significantly larger than the phones that Apple had released previously. Basically, I'll come back to this. So I wound up buying the 6S, and I knew I wasn't going to like it. And everybody tells me, just give it a few days. You get, because it's a physically larger phone, you get the hang of it. I never fucking liked this goddamn phone. And it's easy to tell you why. 2 reasons. First of all, because they moved the power button to the side of the phone, which means whenever you put the phone into sort of landscape mode in order to take a picture, half the time I'm hitting the goddamn power button and turning the phone off instead of taking a picture, which drives me crazy.
Samsung did the same thing with their tablets.
Well, you're leading me where I'm sort of heading here. The other part is the fact that it's no longer a phone that can be manipulated with one hand. Because this phones have always been a bit slimmer, I'm used to being able to hold the phone with my left hand and do everything with it. Now it's wide enough that I can't do all my typing. I have to use two hands. It just drove me nuts. I don't understand why Apple made this diameter change. Actually, I do understand. They were basically chasing Android phones. The trend has been for larger phones, and Apple was doing the sort of relatively slim 5 phone. Anyhow, fast forward a little bit. I've spent the past 3 or 4 months bitching about how much I hate this phone and how much I had a 5. Lo and behold, Apple announces the iPhone SE, which is basically nothing more than a slightly more powerful iPhone 5. Thank God. Yeah. Clearly, I'm not the only one that had a problem with this.
Well, Apple is pretty smart, as you know. So I actually read a little bit about this because there are several people just like Chris who didn't like the bigger form factor.
Yeah.
Interestingly, again, this is the differences between Keith and Chris, is if you give a shit, but bigger phone is one of the reasons.
One's handsome and one's ugly. Yeah. You guess which is which.
Yeah, you decide. When I got my first HTC phone, an Android, one of the things that drew me to it was bigger.
Yeah.
I wanted a bigger phone. Samsung went too far with the Mega. I don't know if you've seen the Mega. Men don't generally carry purses. I do carry a briefcase, which kind of doubles. I was joking with my wife. It kind of doubles as a purse. Like if you look in my briefcase, you'll find like chapstick and shit like that. So it's
wet naps and peppermints.
Yeah, it is kind of like a purse. But anyway, so men really can't carry on purses. So we have to have everything in our pockets. For fuck's sake, don't make a phone that doesn't fit in a pocket. My God, like you want to know how big to make something? Make it about the size of a pack of cigarettes. Why? Because that's what pockets in men's clothes were designed for years. And that's what we have is pockets designed to fit shit the size of a pack of cigarettes.
Well, you know what your mistake was is buying a phone that doesn't fit in your pocket. The way you send that message is you don't buy it.
Well, no, you're right. But see, I didn't have that problem. I like the, I have an HTC One, by the way.
Yep.
And it is roughly the size of an iPhone 6. And I love it.
Yep.
I will say this, the difference between the Android and the Apple, one of my reasons for the bigger phone is it's easier to type if you have big caveman hands and you hit 7-8 keys at a time. I'll say this, even though the Apple is smaller because, like for instance, here I'm holding an iPod Touch and the iPod Touch is like the size of an iPhone 4 and it's clearly much smaller than my cell phone, and yet typing stuff on the smaller Apple, easier. The Apple keyboard is way better than the Android keyboard. So you can type more easily on a smaller screen if it's Apple. If it's Android, you need the bigger screen. Otherwise, your typos all day.
Interesting. I'd be interested to find out what the logic is behind that.
Well, and I'll tell you another thing. They know it. How do I know they know it? Because every Android device you buy comes with a second keyboard app. You can use the one that Google provided, or here's a better keyboard. Do you need a second keyboard app on your iDevice? No, you don't, because the Apple keyboard is fine.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, there's lots of people like Chris who had that same problem. How do we know this? The iPhone 4, which by the way, if you go into, say, a Target store, when the iPhone 6 was released, they blew out the last of the iPhone 4s and they stopped selling them a year ago. With that said, big retailers like Walmart and Target have not sold an iPhone 4 in a long time. 8%, over 200 million phones that Apple sold last year were the iPhone 4 that you cannot even buy a lot of places.
So where are they coming from?
Used, I don't know, mom and pop stores, some little kiosk in the mall. So, but not big ass retailers. Those big ass retailers like Target, by the way, write big contracts with Apple to become a certified Apple store. And that allows them to get inventory sooner. So they would get inventory the same day as the Apple store. Some ratty little kiosk in the mall, He ain't getting stuff the same day as the Apple Store, I guarantee. So that's where they're still selling the 4. But that's my point. Is Apple
clearly there's a lot of demand.
They're still selling millions of the old phone that they decide is too small and no one wants. Millions of people want it.
It'll be interesting to see if they keep selling both side by side. I mean, now they've got the 5, which is the smaller form factor that was obviously previous to the 6s. And if they'll maintain both the 6 and the 6S, the 5SE, the 6S, and the 6S Plus, which is basically the boat paddle
monster,
type. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they carry that. I mean, I guess there's no reason why they couldn't. So you've got more options.
I think exactly. Yeah, give people the option. For me, who wants the bigger phone, you wants a smaller one. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, last thing I'll say about it, the iPhone SE, the only significant feature it's missing compared to the 6 series, apart from the extra size, is the fact that they don't have the Force Touch function built in, which frankly, I couldn't give a rat's ass less about. Okay. I've had it on my 6S and I just don't use it, whether I haven't bothered to get in the habit of using it or, I mean, the few times I muck with it and I'm like, okay, whatever, so I can press and hold on the mail icon and start a new message rather than just touch the mail icon, get into the mail app and then say new message. It just doesn't save me that much, so I sort of didn't care.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Listen, we've been going for a little bit, so we should wrap soon. But since we're on the Apple topic, I wanted to touch on something briefly. Our last episode, or maybe the one before, I can't remember, we spent a lot of time talking about the Apple FBI case, which since then, we've just found out that the FBI has dropped their suit, or close to being a suit against Apple, because in some way, shape, or form, they figured out how to break into that stupid iPhone finally on their own, supposedly, without needing Apple's help. So Apple kind of looks like they came out on the right side of this one without getting burned too badly.
And it's also not the end of this, because like we were saying, there's all those other cases where they want to crack open a phone. That's still true. Yeah. And they've been doing this over and over, on and on for years. I don't know if you remember Pretty Good Privacy, PGP.
Sure.
Very popular encryption that's excellent and it works. And as soon as that started to gain traction and more people were using it, this was before, all the NSA stuff came out. I'm going back a couple years here. But yeah, it was the same thing as they were demanding that we want a government key that will open anything that is encrypted with PGP. And, the answer was no, that defeats the entire purpose of the thing and blah, blah, blah. These same arguments over and over. So, yes, I agree that, Apple came out on top. But what's interesting, though, as I interrupt myself, what the FBI did for those kids who didn't catch the news story, they went to a cybersecurity company. They happened to be in Israel. And there are easy things you can do, like disconnect the phone from any cell phone tower so that it doesn't know what time it is, so that you can try a bunch of things, fail, and then it isn't aware. Then you reflash the memory and it's not aware that anything happened. It's yesterday. It's last week. It's a month ago. And it'll just let you keep doing that. And that's the kind of stuff they did to brute force it, we think. That's the scary thing about this story now is the FBI has made it classified information how they unlocked this phone. They're not telling. So now we're faced with, well, if it was a hardware crack, like what I was just describing, where you flash the memory so that you can buy yourself through the hardware multiple brute force attempts to unlock the phone, well, that's one thing that a lot of companies know how to do. And frankly, it came out, the NSA knows how to do that. Why was the NSA so quiet? Why did the FBI not involve the NSA? Or, dun, 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 conspiracy theory, maybe the NSA was involved and they wanted to see, well, what can someone else do? What can we strong arm Apple into doing? So, there's a bigger story. And then the scary part is, hang on, what if the software engineers at this Vaba, whatever, I don't remember the name of the company, Cell something, this Israeli company, if they were able to hack it through software and crack it, now we have another story. Now, this is that problem of, well, if this now exists as a key and only the FBI has it and it's classified, suddenly they drop their cases and it's like, well, no, we're good. We don't need your help.
Yeah, no more need to look over here. We'll be fine. Yeah, we're good.
It kind of raises some questions. So stay tuned to this podcast because this subject will come up again, I guarantee.
Never say anything on your phone or do anything on your phone without assuming that people are looking at you, basically.
Did I tell you, did we
don't
talk
think
about
that you're
the
a fucking
Samsung TVs, new Samsung TVs? They do listen to you, and they had to send out a revised ULA agreement to everyone who bought a recent Samsung TV. It's listening to you, and they do sell the information. They don't use it themselves for anything nefarious, but they do sell the information. They had to admit that. So if you have a new Samsung TV, it's totally listening to you.
That's great, because I just bought a new Samsung TV, but it doesn't have any microphones in it, so that I'm aware of. So I think I'm okay. And it's also not plugged into the internet, so I know I'm okay.
Okay, good.
So what was supposed to be a 15-minute intro has turned into a, I don't know what, 30, 40-minute intro? Yeah, pretty much. So I think it's a good spot to take a break. That way we can refresh beers and dive into a couple of other topics. We actually do have two primary sections we're going to talk about. Keith and I were going to banter a bit about games. We have a whole bunch of random topics we wanted to cover real fast. We'll try and buzz through those a little more quickly than we've been doing our 40-minute intro. And we wanted to talk a little bit about comic book superhero movies and TV shows. Obviously, Batman v Superman just came out, but apart from that, there's a couple other things we wanted to chat
Daredevil.
about. Yeah. So sit tight. We'll be right back.
Yep.
Hey, thanks for listening to Geek Tangent. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please send us an email at contact@geek-tangent.com. While you're at it, you can stay in touch with us by liking our Facebook page. You can find that at facebook.com/geektangentpodcast.
Okay, and welcome back to the Geek Tangent, episode 5. This is the Keith and Chris episode. Still just us. So I kind of want to talk about games a little bit. I'm still sort of living in that. Actually, I'm living in a crazy town. I have a PC in front of me that I do a little bit of PC gaming, not as much as I used to, because it's so damn expensive. But I do still have a PS3 that mostly collects dust. An Xbox 360 that I still play the occasional game. I recently picked up Castlevania Lords of Shadow, which was the sort of a, I don't know, I guess a reboot, a reimagining something of Castlevania. It was done by what's his name? Kojima.
The illustrious
Hideo Kojima. It was his. Every once in a while he'll well, now who knows what the fuck he's doing because he ain't at Konami anymore, but Konami had let him do something other than Metal Gear once in a while. Silent Hill was going to be a thing, but oh well. Although total little sidebar again, Hideo Kojima was at, I don't remember what kind of conference or convention, something. He was at something recently, and in the same building, in the same room at the same time, Guillermo del Toro, and asked the two of them again, like, hey, any chance you guys get together and do, and both of them, oh yeah, totally, yeah. Two people who have like no credibility as far as staying on a project, especially del Toro, my God. Anyway, so they redid Castlevania. If you're as old as we are, Castlevania from old Nintendo. It was a side scroller. You'll hear things get described as a Metroidvania. Metroid and Castlevania were kind of similar. It was an old side scroller kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was redone, and I understand now why a lot of old Castlevania fans hate this Castlevania, because it's actually good. It's not a side scroller. It's a God of War clone, but it's a pretty good one. And so I've been having fun with that. Again,
I'm sorry, that was what, PS3? No, 4.
360. But I'm pretty sure they made it for the PS3 as well.
Yeah.
It was sort of later-ish, I think. It was just a couple years ago. Oh. I don't know. I found it somewhere online, dirt cheap. So, but the dying days of the 360, I guess they still publish software for that thing. Here and there,
probably a couple of random things coming out here and there.
Yeah, I just dumped a whole ton of crap. If you go to the Goodwill near my house, by the way, there's a ton of 360.
Yeah, I was about to say, you made $5 on it if you're sold at a GameStop or something.
You know what? I used to do that when we started playing Destiny. That's what I did. I was like, oh, I gotta get Destiny, and I got it like day one. We were there the first day. Yeah, so I sold a whole bunch of crap, and it was like pulling teeth. And half the shit, it's like you get $2, $3. So I was like, screw that. I'll give it to Goodwill and write it off my taxes next year. But anyway, so I'm getting through my old 360 crap that's still on the shelf. So I'm halfway through Castlevania. I'm halfway through the Wolfenstein game still. I have trouble staying focused on that because it's just so goddamn dour and serious. I know it's Nazis. Nazis are not supposed to be funny. But
that's to say.
Yeah. So, and on my Xbox
Unless you're watching a Charlie Chaplin movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. But or famously or not so famously, there was a movie that it's very hard to find. Jerry Lewis did a movie where he played a clown who was entertaining children before they were marched into the ovens at Auschwitz.
Oh, Jesus.
And it's super, super dark. And yeah, anyway, that's a movie that's out there.
And on that note.
Yeah, on that note, yeah. So, Nazis. Yeah, so on my Xbox One, I still like fighting games, and I know like the new Mortal Kombat's about to come out, which it's the same as the old one, just that it has.
I was about to say, I feel like, not being a fan of fighting games, generally speaking, I feel like Mortal Kombat, like the new Mortal Kombat came out like just 6 or 8 months ago.
It came out about a year ago.
It just feels like they keep coming, I guess.
Well, what they do is, they'll put out the game and then they'll have DLC where they'll add extra characters and extra costumes and that kind of crap. The characters they added were all like horror movie people. So that, like Predator.
Oh, yeah.
Jason Voorhees.
Jason Voorhees, yeah.
It's kind of dumb, I think, frankly, but whatever. I guess. I mean, because it's a character, but like they're paying licensing fees and all this crap. I don't know. And one of the last times they did that, the Freddy Krueger that they put in was off of the reboot, the new movie. It's like, really? Like they made so many of those old ones. Robert Englund could use the fucking paycheck. Come on. Use the old one. But anyway, so yeah, what they do is they'll re-release the game with all of the DLC included, and then repackage it and sell it in case you're too cheap to buy the DLC or whatever. So they'll put out the complete version. That's what's coming out now is the, Mortal Kombat 10 with all the extra crap. I don't know if I'll get it or not. I still have Mortal Kombat X. It was good. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things like they kind of need to let it sit every once in a while to let you forget about it. Cause at the end of the day, it's kind of the same gameplay. Yeah. Over and
Assassin's Creed is notorious for having the same problem. They've gone through this phase of banging out games like crazy, and all of a sudden everybody's like, overload too many. The quality was suffering, and it sort of seems like they're backing off a little bit.
Finally, yeah, that's a Ubisoft thing. They're what's the other one that they're Far Cry. Is, although I've heard Brutal is the
Primal,
Primal rather, right, is actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. But again, it makes it difficult. How involved can character motivations and stuff be when people only talk in grunts as caveman, unga bunga, so it's a little hard to, how much story can you have, but I don't know. With that said, maybe I watched the movie Apocalypto, which was Mel Gibson as he was going crazy, Looney Tunes.
Man, you must have too much free time in your hands if you're watching that fucking movie.
It was when I was unemployed, so I did have a lot of free time. But with that said, it was a great movie. And there's not a word of dialogue. Zero.
That's doable, yeah.
Because it's just unga bunga, a grunt, grunt. And it's great. Fascinating, gripping, like from the first second to the very end. And by the end, you're cheering for that guy. It's great.
So Mortal Kombat.
Crazy. So anyway, yeah. So that's sort of what I'm playing. Oh, no, yeah. So no, I'm not playing Mortal Kombat. I still play Dead or Alive. And it's one of these things I'll joke with my friend Matt, which hopefully he's listening, Matt. I actually texted him one day as I'm playing it. It's like, dude, I can't keep playing these games, man. So Dead or Alive, I don't know if you're familiar. It's one of the last 3D fighters. Besides me, I know Garnet Lee out there, wherever he is, he's also a fan of the series for the same reason as me. You can sidestep. Whether it's Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, it's 2D. You're just walking forward. Hello, you can sidestep and then punch goes next to you, bang. This is the only game that still does like 3D fighting like that, which is great. Problem is it's made by a bunch of perverts. So, this is the game where back in the day, you'd put in your age, and the older you said you were, the more, the female characters would bounce and jiggle and stuff.
Jesus, really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, yeah.
I'm not surprised, but...
So they made a second iteration of the game where it wasn't a fighting game. They took the same characters. This is going back to late PS2, early original Xbox days, when for whatever reason, the thing that everyone had to have was a beach volleyball game. Had to have it. It was huge. I don't know why, but go back in time 10 years. It was huge. So the Dead or Alive people said, well, we have all these, girl characters with the bouncing and the jiggling. This is made for beach volleyball, dude. So guess what? Yes, they made Dead or Alive beach volleyball. They continue to make it. The most recent version is not being ported to the United States. It is only sold in Asia. So fans of the series, whatever, American perverts were like, hey, we want, this over here. And the company said, well, it's not personal. It's, things with the game. People like, well, what? Like, I don't understand. Yeah, so there were different speculations about the real reason why it wasn't being ported over. The real reason, all of the new, like, hot, sexy characters they put in, like, little bikinis and stuff, underage girls. So it is kind of borderline
illegal,
creepy, illegal in this country. Yeah, and over in parts of Asia, sex with minors is a booming business here in Thailand. It's like, no, bad. Yeah. So, anyway, that's, as a fighting game, it's good, but once in a while, like, a character comes out and it's like, oh Jesus. Like I'd say to Matt, it's like, you can't play the game. Wife, sister, girlfriend, mother, none of these people can see you playing this game because you'll be explaining shit away forever.
It's like you need the old video games on the computer where there'd be like a really shortcut key thing or something that would bring up a fake Excel spreadsheet or something.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm just embarrassed.
Yeah. It needs to have a button that it brings up like World of Tanks or something, some horseshit. But I don't mean to call World of Tanks horseshit. Some people love it. It's just not my deal. But anyway, so I'm trying to play that. But frankly, I can only play it for, 15, 20 minutes. And it's like, I can't be.
I'm out.
You feel wrong, dirty.
That's somebody's way of telling you to just shelf it and move on with your life, basically.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're kind of banging around trying to catch up on some old stuff, broadly speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't find myself bouncing around multiple games a lot, but I am still into the Division, which of course
I see you playing that all the time.
Well, it's, I'm kind of monochromatic that way. If it's not Destiny, then it's the Division. And one of these days I'll, break the cycle and actually learn how to vary it up a little bit, which I'll get back to in a second. But so I'm not going to get too far into the Division because honestly, Doug's the guy that's like, Doug's MO with games, and he'll be the first to tell you, is like, he gets in and he's the guy that's got to like, I want to be the top level dude as fast as I can. And I want to have everything and I want to understand everything about the game, which, like, as an outsider, you look at it and go, Jesus, dude, you're psychotic. On the other hand, it's great to have him in your back pocket because when you're playing with him, he does all the heavy lifting and or he explains everything to you.
Yeah, Doug's middle name is FAQ.
Yes,
F-A-Q.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I don't want to get. I think we're going to have probably a deeper conversation about the Division, perhaps next episode when we're all back on board. But I will say that I've been playing it. I enjoy it. I'm not maniacal about it. What it does do is scratch the OCD thing, where like many games like it, like the Far Cry series, for example, or Mad Max, which I've been mucking around with. It shows you a map where there are just things that you need to do everywhere, and they're not critical to the storyline, but the OCD in me is like, I must have everything. So I'm moving really slowly through the game because as things get revealed, you're like, well, I have to go back to that first map area that I was in, which I finished 5 levels ago, because now I know where all the stupid phones are that were left behind on the ground, or, the little sheets of paper. Like, I have to go get them all. It's been driving me fucking nuts.
Yeah. Footnote C, Elder Scrolls, any version, any of them.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Like, here's the main question. Like, we joked about this, playing. I have hundreds of hours into Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. You played Skyrim and fucked around with all the little side missions to the point where your guy was like God, and then I guess I'll do the main storyline, and then blew through and killed everyone in like a day.
I'm doing the same thing now, actually. I did that with Destiny. It just seems to be the way I'm wired. I did it with Fallout. My classic joke about that.
4.
Yeah, you run around and like look under every rock. What's under here? What's under here? And I practically intentionally dodged all the storyline stuff, and then finally like, well, I've done everything else. And yeah, you're done with the storyline in an hour. Anyhow, so Division's interesting. I mean, everybody's talked about it ad nauseum at this point. It's a good game. It's not fantastic. It's enough to keep me engaged sort of mindlessly. I still haven't done any Dark Zone stuff. Again, sort of the one-track mind thing. I want to do everything and get myself maxed out before I dive into Dark Zone stuff, which is pretty dumb, I suppose. There's a lot of weirdness about the storyline writing, which, again, many other podcasts have mentioned. I was listening to... I think it might have been Beastcast. I'm not quite sure. But one of them mentioned a week or so ago, like, there's something really ironic about the fact that you're running through the city, and when you see looters, you have to kill them because they're the bad guys. And then what's the next thing you're doing? You're looting their body.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're kind of the bad guy. Anyhow, so I've been doing some Division. I'm going to keep on doing that. I can see myself feeling compelled to sort of finish it, at least maxing out my character, and probably doing at least a little bit of the Dark Zone stuff. I don't know how enthused I'm going to be about all the expansion stuff they have coming. I did buy the Gold Pass thing, but I'm sort of like, I'm not really all that committed to it. Of course, I'm saying that now, but you never know. I'll probably dive into it eventually. The other thing I've been thinking about, and I haven't actually managed to pick up a copy of it yet, was we visited some family this past weekend, and my cousin-in-law, I guess, is also on Xbox, and she was talking to me about Rocket League, which, of course, was the rage on, I think it was PC at first, but now they've made it cross-platform and everything.
It was on PlayStation for a year before it made it to...
Okay, so it's a PlayStation thing. Yeah. And I've seen video about it, and I've been, it looks like it's a lot of fun, and it's available on Xbox now, and although I haven't grabbed a copy, I'm kind of getting to a point where I've been doing all these heavy games for so long where I'm sort of like, I need to find just something fun and dumb, basically. Clearly Rocket League's a lot of fun.
My only problem with Rocket League is it takes two things I hate and puts them together. Racing games. Sorry, kids. It's boring and it sucks. Like the rubber banding and all the bullshit. Like, I don't care. Like, it's just like real life racing. Whatever. Did the red car win? We like the red car. Yay, red. I don't know what the fuck. It's racing, I could give two shits. And basically sports games, not so much. So like, it combines the boredom of soccer with the monotony of racing. Yeah. It's like, oh, great. Like, no, thanks. But, I see people playing it and it's cool. They just added a basketball mode. And I was listening to another podcast, Rage Select, and they were talking about ice hockey, which I thought was brilliant. And, all the cars, you could be like drifting the entire time.
Yeah.
Totally changed the mechanic. I thought it was a good idea.
That probably wouldn't be too tough for them to do. I mean, clearly. Yeah, it's just a matter of changing some of the physics and making it a different mode. That'd be kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they're already doing it with basketball. I mean, now you just got to think of other sports that'll translate. Good luck with baseball, by the way. But
baseball sucks anyhow. Oh, sorry. Didn't say that. So listen, besides the games we're playing as well, there's a little bit of news on both of the console fronts we wanted to touch on briefly.
Yep.
As we know, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about that very vague announcement from Phil Spencer from Microsoft about the Xbox systems being quote unquote upgradable, and he didn't go into any real detail. I was supposing, and I'm kind of thinking I'm right, in particular, in light of what we're about to talk about, that what they're really talking about are new SKUs with upgraded hardware, as opposed to add-ons that you can, punch in.
Yep.
So this week, Sony announced that they're going to be releasing sort of an updated PS4. Yeah. The broad thought is that this has to do with their VR hardware, which I don't recall if it has a particular name. Clearly, VR is the new hotness, and everybody's looking to jump on it like crazy. And in anticipation of their VR hardware coming out, they're announcing an updated PlayStation. And I know you know more about the details in it than I do, so take it away.
Yeah, they're calling the new unit the PlayStation 4.5. Allegedly, as they make new games, it'll still work on your PS4 as well as your 4.5. I'm a little wary about if you're going to have features that are crippled, longer load times, slower responses, graphics not quite the same, refresh rate slower. Like, I wonder what that really means. Yeah. And it kind of defeats the purpose again of I don't want to rehash. You can listen to this previous episode and hear me complain about this there. The idea of the console was that it was a static thing where I knew if I bought the game that says PS4 on it, I'd bring it home, it works on my PS4, and now, God damn it, it's not necessarily going to be true anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a slippery slope that they're both going to. It's like one is given license to the other to do it.
Basically. Well, the one thing that I read from Xbox, and I think I forwarded you the news story or someone's comment about it, Chris, was that the problem that Microsoft is having is that with the advent of cell phones and tablets and everyone's gaming on those things, that is where the casual gamer has gone. Like the person who used to buy that one copy of Madden and play that one copy of Madden all year until next year, and then he got next year's Madden and then put that in for a year. Those people don't exist. They're gone. They're now playing, they're gambling on FanDuel. That's where they're getting their football fix, on their phone. They're playing games on their phone. They're doing bullshit on their phone. They didn't even buy a console. That's the problem. So they're realizing if they want to make money like they used to, they need to make all that money off of Keith and Chris, the people that are there for the long haul. So this is part of what they're doing, is they're kind of forcing us to upgrade quicker because they want more money for hardware now. That was a depressing thing that came out of Microsoft.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think I mentioned this last time around, whether or not there's a significant advantage for the games we buy between like the base version that we all have now, whether it's an Xbox or PlayStation, or the upgraded version. Do game manufacturers start coding to that higher end system, or do they continue to code to the baseline system, knowing anything that's more advanced or whatever, like PS 4.5 or whatever they want to call it, but they code for the base system, and the extra horsepower is reserved specifically for this new hardware that they're introducing, like the VR stuff, which, I mean, that end makes sense. I mean, VR is going to need a lot of horsepower to make it work right.
Yeah.
It's going to be a weird, I don't really know how they're going to sort of, balance along that line, that tightrope effectively.
You're right about that as far as Sony, though.
Yeah, the Xbox thing is kind of a different beast because as far as we know, they don't have any of this VR hardware, which the VR thing is a whole other, and we've touched on that at some point, but from a gaming standpoint, it's a whole other topic.
And clearly over the next year, we're going to have more to talk about as more, details come out. But yeah, it's early on when the PlayStation VR system was called Morpheus, they were looking at you having to buy a second unit that would then plug into your PS4. Yeah. Now they don't talk about that. They just talk about the 4.5. So I suspect you're right in that a lot of that additional horsepower in the 4.5 is for the VR system. Yeah. With that said, everyone is coming out with their pricing on their VR systems. The Oculus Rift is $600. The HTC Vive that is working with Steam is $700. And the PlayStation is only $399. Hey, we win on price again. But my thing is, do you? Because it also came out this week that, oh, by the way, every single VR game we're making is going to require the PlayStation camera and the Move controller. You did buy that with your PS3, didn't you?
I was about to say, I've heard that the Move controller is like, where do you fucking find those these days?
Yeah, allegedly they sold millions of them, but they never.
Clearly, they're going to start reproducing them, but it's one of those things that's fallen so far by the wayside that everybody's like, wait, what? Yeah. I don't know if I can find the box that I have that in, for Christ's sake.
And that's a problem. And I predict that's going to be a problem because the way it's looking is they're not going to be selling their VR goggles with the Move and the camera. So you're going to spend, God knows what on your PS 4.5 plus another $400 for your visor, your 3D, virtual reality visor. And then it's going to say, okay, now plug in your PlayStation Eye camera, and you're going to say, what camera? It didn't come with one.
They have to be smart enough to I can't imagine they don't have a plan to figure this part out. We're just not hearing about it at this point. I mean, unless they're just looking to do the royal screw job on everybody. It's like, Jesus, really?
Yeah, and to make sure that the thing fails. It's like, God, Sony.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell are you guys thinking?
Sony just got their shit together again, and, stuff's actually working, and a machine with PC architecture that people can write for, no more cell processor bullshit.
Yeah, I know.
And then they throw this in. So it's like, God damn it, Sony.
Clearly, this whole, upgradable console thing is going to be the story of 2016. I mean, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg at this point.
Yep. Luckily, we do a podcast every 2 weeks, so
we'll stay on top of it. Listen, before we take another break, I wanted to mention one sort of random brain fart thing I had relating to gaming consoles. And this is just to file this under why the fuck don't they do this kind of category. I was online the other night on the Xbox, and I was about to jump into a Division game, and I'm taking a look at my friend list, and one of the guys that was online was a friend of mine who just bought an Xbox, and he had bought a handful of games. clearly he was testing stuff out, and he was in the middle of playing Hitman, the latest version of Hitman, which I haven't paid close attention to, but I guess it's the episodic one or something like that.
Oh God, that's right. Yeah, bad idea.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, it worked for, Walking Dead, buy each episode as you go kind of thing. If it's cheaper and at the end of the day it equates to a full price game, then maybe that's not a bad idea. Anyhow, so I'm looking at the friend list before I jump into Division. I see he's playing this and I'm like, I'd actually kind of like to see this. And it suddenly made me realize, why don't they set up some way where if you see a friend playing a game, you can send a request to them going, hey, I'd love to watch you play for a little bit. And if they grant it, it basically streams the game to you. I don't know about PlayStation, but I know the Xbox has, Twitch streaming built in, and you could sort of set yourself up with a Twitch account, stream your game there and invite friends there. But it seems to me, maybe it's not possible to do on-the-fly streaming, and that's why you have to do use Twitch as the go-between. But it sure would be great to have a way to simply say, like, oh, I see this guy's doing this, or, my cousin-in-law is playing Rocket League, and I'd love to see it for a few minutes, and, just stream them on the fly playing the game. I'm putting that at the top of my add this to the Xbox, feature list, please.
I think you should say something to someone, because I think it's a great idea.
I'm saying something to everybody right now. That's what this podcast is all about, goddammit.
I don't know if Major Nelson is listening, but
yeah,
could be. I think it's a great idea. And what's frustrating is the hardware. Again, I don't own a PS4. I don't know for sure on the PS4, but I can tell you in the Xbox One, hardware is there, period. Because you can, if you have a Kinect, you can just say, hey, Xbox, record this, and it'll record what you're playing, and then you can have it posted to whatever you want.
Yep.
On your Facebook, Twitch, whatever the hell. So the ability to record and broadcast and even stream through Twitch, it's all there already. It just seems like, a protocol here and, an API there, and it's done.
Yeah. Side note about that. I'm not sure about the video streaming, because I have to admit I haven't tried this. I know that you can this is no surprise to anybody that's familiar with the Xbox, but you can very easily take snapshots of what you're doing and record video on the fly. I think if you double tap the Xbox button mid-game, I'm not sure that's the same thing as live Twitch, Twitch stream this or whatever. But I'm pretty sure most of that functionality you don't need to have a Kinect device for, at least at this point. But yeah, I mean, with our luck, it'll be like, you would be able to direct stream from your friend's computer, your friend's system, once you buy that upgraded version of the console we've been talking about. It's like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, the Xbox 1.5.
Yeah. So that's a feature I'm going to start gunning for, and I just wanted to sort of put it out there, and I'm going to go look for the Xbox or Microsoft feedback forum and go, God damn it, let me look over my friend's shoulder right now.
I think it's a great idea, unless I'm playing Dead or Alive, in which case... I ain't streaming that.
Right.
The police coming.
All right, cool. Let's take another break and we'll wrap up the show with one more segment.
Sounds good. Hey, listener. You will hear each of us introduce topics for the show, but keep in mind that this is the Geek Tangent, and as varied as the topics are, we can always talk about even more, as long as it's at least tangentially related to our and your interests. Let us know what you think about the show. Contact us by email, contact@geek-tangent.com, or write a review of us on iTunes. It really does help us get noticed. And check out our YouTube channel at Geek Tangent Podcast on YouTube.
So we're back for the third and final quarter of the world's longest episode of Geek Tangent so far, even though only half the crew is here. Go figure. Yeah. The math kind of doesn't add up there, but what the hell?
You got the two biggest mouths, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much. So we figured we'd finish out the last segment talking about one of our favorite topics, which is basically superhero movies and by extension TV shows. And this is a good time to do it because, of course, the long-awaited Batman v Superman movie came out a little last week. Now, right up front, I have to say that neither of us have seen it yet, but
But we'll tell you all about it.
We're going to tell you all about it. We're going to act authoritatively about it. No, we're just going to touch on it briefly, simply because it is a worthy point of discussion, because obviously these are some banner characters in the DC universe. Everybody's been waiting for this movie in anticipation. Perhaps dread, which frankly is kind of the category I fall into more. You know, they've been doing a lot of PR about it over the past few months, if not even longer. And it's one of those things where you see it and go, oh my God, it's going to be this like big dark battle kind of thing. Or you look at it and go, oh boy, I'm not sure they can pull it off. And as we all know, DC doesn't have a perfect track record at all. In fact, they've really struggled to get their media franchises on solid footing.
They are so schizophrenic, man.
Yeah, they're having a hard time. So, you know, without belaboring it too much, obviously with a precursor like Man of Steel and with the conclusion of the Christopher Nolan fronted Batman movies, you know, DC finds themselves playing catch up, of course, with Marvel, who has obviously spent 8 years or so, whatever it is, since Iron Man. 8 years. Yeah, it's actually pretty much 8 years. Yeah. Fostering and carefully nurturing this whole ecosystem that lets them do all these amazing crossovers they've been doing. And DC's obviously playing catch up. And not surprisingly, Batman v Superman is their effort to kind of kickstart a superhero group movie, obviously the Justice League. And strangely, you know, on opening, the Rotten Tomatoes rating on it has been awful and just getting worse. I've kept an eye on it, and I think when the movie actually first came out, it was at about 33%. It's now down, last time I checked, to 29%. Yet strangely, the viewer response has been mixed, but more enthusiastic about it. Clearly, it's a very dark movie. Across the board, everybody says that the storyline is a train wreck. Nobody can understand what the hell's going on. And just from what I've seen from trailers and stuff, it's clear that Zack Snyder is taking the Frank Miller-based stuff, the sort of darker Batman stuff, Batman, you know, / Superman things with Dark Knight Returns or Rises or whatever. I can't keep straight. He's trying to take that tone, the same tone, of course, that Nolan also worked with, and trying to slam in a lot of different characters, and with very mixed results.
And not just the tone. I mean, so if you jump in the Wayback Machine, like you were just saying, Dark Knight Returns, 1986, Frank Miller came to DC after he had just finished a run on Daredevil, which we'll talk about Daredevil in a minute.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the Daredevil TV show on Netflix is based loosely off of some of the Frank Miller stuff. I think not Tim Sale, but the guy that he worked with, Jeff Loeb, is still writing or producing. I know he did season 1. Mm-hmm. I think he's still on for season 2. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale did a great Daredevil miniseries a couple years back, The Man Without Fear, that of course I got. And they've pulled from their own material as well. Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb also did Batman. So there's lots of TV, movie, and comic stuff intermingling. Anyway, 1986, Frank Miller did Dark Knight Returns, which, if you're not familiar, and you really should be, and you really should read it if you haven't, it was hugely influential. The story is based on Batman as a retired guy. He's no longer Batman. The city of Gotham goes to hell. These mutants are, gangs are running around the city tearing things up.
Not mutants like Marvel mutants, by the way, just like crazy hooligans, basically.
They look like steroid punks, with crazy makeup and big muscles and stuff, and whatever, the crime gangs, pick your crime gang thing, and whatever. So at the time in 1986, Batman was considered a dead character by DC. No one cared about him, was not interesting. Sales were way down, and this was because all of us growing up in the 70s had the Super Friends and the campy 60s TV Batman in reruns. That's the only Batman we knew. Batman sucked. Batman was no good. So DC told Miller, you can do whatever the fuck you want with Batman. No one's going to read it anyway. No one cares.
He went super dark. Yeah. And that's the Batman we all know in this modern day and age, which gets us right up to the goddamn movie.
Batman murdered the Joker. He drowned him in a puddle of mud. The Batmobile was a tank. And Superman was hired by the United States government to shut down all the superheroes. This is part of why Batman was no longer being Batman. So the government was aware that there was no way they could stop Superman. So they hired him and said, we need you to take out all the superheroes and all the supervillains. We're making being a superhero illegal. So Superman turns into a thug. He cuts off Green Arrow's arm with his heat vision. They show that in the book. And in the end, Batman, as an old man dying, in order to be able to fight Superman, has to have a piece of kryptonite and armor, and he goes toe-to-toe with Superman. Spoiler. He fakes his death. It looks like Superman kills Batman in the end, and he's actually buried. And they show Clark Kent goes to Bruce Wayne's funeral, and he hears a heartbeat in the casket.
In the ground, yeah.
And then they just show Superman with a like sort of sly little look. He leaves, and then the final scene of the comic is Batman is out as Bruce Wayne, and he's rebuilding, his empire and all the stuff with Robin, who was a little girl. Okay. This turned into a huge success. It took him over 2-3 years to do a 4-issue miniseries, by the way, because it's Frank Miller. This is why they made the Michael Keaton Batman. The Michael Keaton Batman was inspired by this piece of fiction. It's taken us this long for someone to say, well, let's really kind of make that Batman. So we had the Christopher Nolan version. What they did with this Batman versus Superman is they took that fight scene totally out of context and jammed it into this movie. They had to find a premise for that fight to exist. They realized Man of Steel was critiqued highly because when Superman was beating the shit out of General Zod,
killing thousands of people in the city,
killing hundreds and thousands of people as they are throwing each other through buildings and all this stuff, tons of collateral damage, and whatever. Batman gets pissed at Superman for being such a hack. So now we both have to destroy the city and kill each other. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So the basic premise is flawed, and it only makes sense if you're a comic book nerd and you're offended by the very idea. Those are the people that understand it. You've already built in hatred in your audience that's supposed to love it.
Well, okay, now we're going to play a little bit of point counterpoint. It's funny being familiar with that graphic novel series you're talking about and seeing all these trailers to Batman v Superman. You can see clearly they drew very heavily from the imagery in that graphic novel series. The Batman armor and the color and tone of it looks very similar and all that stuff.
Yep. I
actually don't have much of a problem with the way they rephrased that battle. In fact, there's no way that they could have dragged that Batman Returns story into this movie. It's just too dense, particularly coming out of nowhere. And I'm kind of okay with Batman.
It's the last Batman story you can tell. It's the end of Batman.
Yeah, until they come up with something else.
Frank Miller story is. I mean, that is how Batman ends.
Yeah, but he's still alive and he's still doing shit. But maybe him as the Batman character. Yeah. But
we won't talk about the second series that Frank Miller did.
Yeah, apparently that's
it was dreadful.
Even I know that's awful. But regardless, I can see from a story standpoint, I can see why they transposed that. What's the conflict between Batman and Superman? That makes a lot of sense the way they've done it in this new movie. Yeah. But clearly, by all accounts, the whole thing is just a slog, and the main plot points are very weak. And you read across the board, like 2/3 of the movie, people are like, wait, why is this person doing this? And clearly there are some shoehorns in to show, get Wonder Woman in there. And I know there's at least a brief reference oblique to Cyborg. And I know that Aquaman makes a very brief appearance, I guess. And clearly they're just trying to hit the fast forward button to get all this shit thrown together so they can do a goddamn Justice movie.
Yep.
Ironically, one of the things that I've been reading about, and again, not having seen the movie, one of the things I was worried about was like, really, Ben Affleck as Batman? Because I'm not a big Ben Affleck fan.
Right. Better director than actor.
Yeah, and even that, I think he's overrated. He gets his hands on good material to work with. That doesn't make him a great director, in my opinion. But regardless, one of the things I'm hearing about this movie is, in fact, that Affleck is the least of the problems. He's actually a pretty decent, grizzled old Batman. Yeah, and a lot of people are looking forward to seeing him in a standalone movie, blah, blah, blah. But the larger theme here is clearly, personally, my take on is like they need to get Zack Snyder out of the driver's seat. He is not the guy for this. Besides the convoluted story, clearly there's a very dark, depressing, unpleasant tone to the whole thing. Now, granted, compared to Marvel movies, which are kind of fun and silly in their own way while still being very entertaining and
bright and colorful.
And I mean, there's just a whole friggin' oppressive thing with the direction they're going with the DC movies. And I think they've made a mistake by letting themselves be led by the Nolan movies, which as standalones are, they get a little progressively worse, but you understand why he takes the tone he does, and it works really well for a Batman character. Now, granted, to transpose a, Dark Knight type Batman into a larger series, it's a tough balancing act because you don't want to drag the whole thing down. And it looks to me like they're dragging the whole thing down right now. Mm-hmm. I think they just got to dump Zack Snyder.
It's so funny. On paper, DC should win. Like, all of the characters, you don't need to do origin stories for any of them. Everybody knows. They've been around since the 1930s and 1940s. Everyone knows all these characters. They're bright, light, like Superman. He's supposed, like, red, white, and blue, truth, justice, the American way.
He's supposed to be the beacon of everything good.
The ultimate
and he's
Boy
clearly
Scout.
This conflicted, dark, pain in the ass, dour.
They have such a hard time. And again, go back to the cartoons made in the 90s. Bruce Timm and these people, they get it. Yeah. Me, like a lot of people, I don't like the character Superman. It's dumb. He's
boring. He's actually a boring character.
A godlike character. He's difficult to write for. You want to see a good series of Superman stories? Watch the 90s cartoon voiced by Tim Daly. It's brilliant. That's the way to do Superman. You don't attack Superman. You attack the things he loves, and then you make him run around defending it. That's how you do Superman.
That's a good point. It's going to be, I mean, they're down the road, and I know that the opening weekend of this movie did surprisingly well. I think it earned $170 million. I don't know how much it cost and all. I wouldn't be surprised if that number drops off, but this could be one of those things where we're seeing just a large disparity between the critical review and the fan enthusiasm for it. It's hard to tell. It's kind of like Donald Trump. Who knows what the fuck is going on? But
there's the train wreck factor. Again, 2 shout outs in one show. My friend Matt went to see it opening night, and man, he's been trashing this movie for months. Like, before it was out, he's like, this is going to be awful. But he was there the day it came out.
I'm of the mind that I'm not going to go see it in the theater because I don't want to give Zack Snyder my money, frankly. I think he's the wrong guy for the job, and I don't think he should be in the driver's. He's DC's Josh Whedon, and he's just a horrible choice for this. How they're going to make the subsequent either origin movies of these other characters or the actual Justice League movie something that isn't just like, man, I'm fucking depressed, I need a drink. How they're going to be able to turn that tone around in such a way that it makes it an enjoyable thing to witness, I don't know. But
I heard that Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman is actually pretty good. And I heard this from Vernon Reed, the guitar player from Living Color. So I don't know if he's a good judge or not.
He's a huge nerd. I mean, I follow him on Twitter. Yeah, but anyhow.
Did you see how much he was going back and forth about this? That's the most I've ever seen him tweet was about this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he went on and on. But anyway, I guess the Wonder Woman movie is one of the next ones. I think it comes out in 2017.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, fingers crossed. I've always said you're never going to make a good Wonder Woman as long as people of our generation are alive, because we will always compare it to Linda Carter, and she wins every time.
Since you mentioned it, that may be a good inroad to turn the tone of the overall series around a bit. Just visually from a color standpoint and sort of the aspirational warrior, well, maybe warrior goddess isn't the way to put it, but maybe they find a way to sort of lighten up the tone or make it not so goddamn oppressive across the board using the Wonder Woman movie, so that when you then come back to introducing these other characters back with her, you have a path towards making it a little more pleasant to watch, basically. I don't know, we'll see. So yeah, I'm going to try and hold off watching Batman v Superman just because I don't want to give Zack Snyder my money. Maybe I'll wait for it to stream on Netflix or something, or I'll steal it on BitTorrent. Fuck it. But besides that, we've talked more about a movie we haven't seen yet anyhow, but I wanted to close out the show sort of broadening the scope and talking a little bit about the TV show type stuff. I was thinking specifically of Daredevil Season 2 on Netflix, which I just binged my way through. And in mentioning it with Keith, he was talking a little bit about some of the DC shows, of which there are a few. So I just wanted to touch on Daredevil real fast. For those of you who have followed the series, Season 1 from last year was pretty solid. Little bit of a slow burn. I don't remember if you watched it, Keith. Did you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm a big Daredevil fan.
Yeah, and I liked what they did with it. I didn't sit there the whole time going, "Oh my God, this is amazing." It was basically really good.
It was really good. The Karen and Foggy stuff was a little forced.
Yep.
And again, it's I think when they go too much off script from the comics, and I again, write in and tell me I'm an idiot if I'm wrong. I don't ever remember any of that with Karen and Foggy at all. And maybe it did happen, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, with season 2, they obviously season 1 was all about Wilson Fisk as the main antagonist. This season, Wilson Fisk actually is in the show a bit, which you may not know, but not surprisingly, Elektra and the Punisher are the two main characters. Both of them are handled really well, I have to say.
That's great.
The show still qualifies as really good, not amazing in my opinion. It's a really solid. The acting's really good. The scene, the tone is really good for that character. I think the guy playing Daredevil's a little kind of bland, personally. I dig the suit and the action sequences and stuff like that. But the two characters, I wanted to focus on this, are just like the two characters, or rather actors they chose for Elektra and in particular the Punisher, were really solid. Without spoiling anything, basically the way the season's structured is kind of the first half of the season, they really focus on the Punisher. And then that storyline more or less gets closed up neatly. And then they introduce the Elektra end of it. The Punisher, you probably know, was played by the guy from Walking Dead who, Keith, you said his name was what? John Bernthal?
Bernthal, yeah.
Bernthal. He was really good in it. I'm not, he was decent in Walking Dead. He played Shane. Shane? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
He was good in that. He did a really great job as the Punisher. They brought a really respectable amount of depth to that character in this TV series, because it's really easy to just paint him as like the guy running around killing everybody. But they spent a lot of time going into his background and his motivation.
He has morals. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it's easy to gloss over a character like the Punisher and just make him the guy that's running around killing everybody that you have to stop. But they actually managed to make it a relatively complex character, which I really respected. They didn't come out with the whole like skull thing on the front until the very end. I guess that's a small spoiler. But they did that pretty well. Once they transitioned out of the Punisher character, they brought in the Elektra character. That's when you get into the whole introduction of the hand.
Yeah. Although you had it in season 1 with Stone and all that. So.
Yep. I thought that was a little bit weaker. Personally, I kind of like the Punisher stuff a bit better. But it was definitely solid. And if you haven't banged your way through it yet, it's totally worthwhile. It's definitely one of the higher quality, if not the highest quality, TV-based superhero series, in my opinion. In fact, it is. It is the best of them.
I'm dying to see how they handle the hand. I didn't mean that as a pun, but it came out as one. Because, again, I read all this in the 80s when Frank Miller was writing it. Black Widow is a huge part of that story.
Yeah.
And she's busy doing movies. She's not part of the TV universe. That I don't think the TV and the movie universe, I think
both DC and Marvel are being pretty explicit about not letting those two intermingle,
which is a huge mistake, I think. For Marvel, I get it, because the Marvel TV stuff on Netflix is Marvel Knights. Mm-hmm. They're gonna go on. I can't wait for Iron Fist. I bought.
Luke Cage is next up on the list, and I know they've got. I think they just cast the guy who's going to do Iron Fist,
and I heard they're going to do Moon Knight, maybe. I have Iron Fist, like they reprinted every once in a while. Marvel will go back and they'll do what they call Marvel Essentials. And I bought a reprint of all the 1970s Iron Fist stuff, which is great. So I'm so waiting for Iron Fist. That's going to be awesome. But there's things like there are characters that they kind of need that are in the cinematic universe that they don't have access to. And forget if you need any mutants, if you need any X people, or you're screwed. Yeah. And that happens. That comes up. I'm encouraged by things we're starting to see for Civil War. Like they most certainly do have Spider-Man in the Civil War movie. Sony is good about playing ball with Marvel, and I think they've learned, because Marvel came to them and said, yeah, you can keep making these shitty Spider-Man movies and making a pittance here and there, or you can play ball with us and we can make billions, dude. Like you see how many people saw the Avengers, bro. Yeah, so Sony gets it. Fox continues to whatever. We talked about Deadpool, and they're talking about a rated R Wolverine movie. I don't know, maybe. It's just a shame. I think they've wasted the Hugh Jackman Wolverine on a couple of crappy movies. Solo movies that could have been better.
Well, hopefully he'll manage to take it out on a high note, particularly if they really lean into the R thing that they now have the option with Deadpool. I mean,
as long as it's not gratuitous, like make it for a reason. Don't just have him like, fuck you, and then stabbing people with the claws. That's not good. Make it so that
I'm kind of okay with that, because that's kind of the character in a great way. I mean, the whole thing about him is left to his own devices. He just slashes everybody to bits. It's when he's with the X-Men that he sort of slowly controls himself. But
that's the thing that's funny is I don't know, maybe people don't realize, again, those of us with memories that go back into the 70s and early 80s, Wolverine was psychotic. The reason, one of the reasons he was popular with us nerdy comic kids is that was really the first time we had a hero who had the propensity to kill. And we all loved the concept, the premise, and the possibility, and it never really happened until you got to the graphic novel they did, which was only sold in specialty shops like Blaine's Comics, which is where I got it. And you got to see suddenly Wolverine is saying 4-letter words and stabbing people in blood and all that stuff. And it's kind of weird when you're used to not seeing it and then you do. I don't know. So they're going to have to deal with that in the movies. Fingers crossed. Like you were saying, though, to transition over to the DC side, and we talked about their movies, these people cannot make a good movie except for Batman. Their TV shows are better. I've been catching up on The Flash, and it's fun. They've kind of done, I think, the TV people have learned from Smallville. Smallville was a constant tease of, well, we're going to show you this Superman character, but we're not even going to use his name. And there is no super suit, and it's for fuck's sake, put on the red suit and let's do this. And you had to wait. I watched that show for like 3 years, and I'm still waiting. Like, are we going to get the fucking suit yet? And I quit. And the show went on for another 3-4 years. And then finally, the last scene of the last episode, Superman. It's like, for fuck's sake, you had to wait years. And then when you finally see the super suit, show's over. Thanks for watching. I think they learned. And so on Flash, yes, they'll introduce characters, and they've created a whatever. I don't know if you watch the show.
I do, and we're going to talk about that for a sec.
Okay, so they, there's things that they've stayed true to the Flash character from the very first episode. They were already putting together the paradox, and if you want to see that story, the animated DC movie does a great job, as always. If you really want to get into all the DC characters, watch the animated stuff.
Let me ask you this: since we both watched Flash, I want to back up for just 1 second, talk about the overall level tone and quality of all of these things, just real fast. I find, like, I'm going to shift back over to the Marvel thing real fast. So we know we've got, on the Marvel side, Netflix is doing Jessica Jones and Daredevil, which, in my opinion, from a quality standpoint, are the best of everything, of all the TV offerings that are out there right now. From the writing standpoint, I have no idea what that means.
He was the bad guy in Jessica Jones, David Tennant.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch Jessica Jones, by the way?
Not in its entirety. I'm kind of.
Yes, I find it boring, frankly. I don't quite get the big deal. But regardless, story writing wise and production quality wise, those two are the best, period. The other Marvel things out there, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I continue to try to watch, but oh my God, it's such a TV show. Ugh.
I watched 5 minutes of Agent Carter once.
That's the other one I was about to mention. It just doesn't appeal to me.
She's a great actress. She's good.
Yeah. I just think from a TV standpoint, it's bland. I mean, clearly
it's Smallville. It's nothing but teases and foreshadowing. Like, if you know what we're talking about in the future, here, 1940s, we don't know. Burp, burp, burp.
Yeah, that's not enough to base your whole TV show on.
Exactly.
It gets tired. Yeah. And from the DC side, I started to watch Arrow when it first came out. And if I recall correctly, that was their first.
Oh, I made it 10 minutes into the first episode.
I waited my way through most of the first season, and I just found it onerous, frankly. And I'm watching Flash now. I don't love it. It's too CW kind of thing. It's just
it is very CW. Yeah, it's it's a teen.
It's just
network.
like, come on. I know they've got Supergirl out now.
They just did a Flash Supergirl crossover this week, which
I read something about that. Yeah,
on my DVR. I'll watch
it. I just feel like I'm dirty when I'm watching any of the DC based stuff and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. basically. Like most of these are not worth the time. And I understand
Flash
that
Flash is worth it.
I just find it cheesy. The acting's crappy, and like crappy to the point where it's just distracting kind of thing. But so, I mean, clearly both ends are developing universes that are intended to be and will only be TV specific. To jump back to the Flash thing briefly, the Flash is a major character in Justice League. And I don't know whether or not they've made a reference to him in the new Batman v Superman movie, but we know for a fact that whoever is being cast as the Flash in the movies is not what's his face from the TV show. Right. That guy's not movie character material.
It's
basically
not even Barry Allen. It's a different Flash, I believe.
Oh, is it really? Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. So it's a weird sort of cross universe they're creating. And having recently watched Daredevil, I just wanted to bring it up at least briefly. And I know you and I are sort of both watching different ends of some of these TV series. I'm not thrilled with any of them, to be honest. It's just compared to all of them, in my opinion, the Netflix ones are the best. I think they've got more latitude with going into dark territory.
Of course.
The TV show based ones are meant to be literally, in all senses of the word, entertaining. And I'm just like, I feel like it's wasting my time.
Mostly aimed at teens or children. Like they're not, Supergirl and the Flash are not intended for us. Like you can watch it, absolutely. And there's plenty of people our age that do, but Daredevil is intended for adults.
Yeah.
Jessica Jones is intended for adults.
Yeah.
They both get pretty gritty with
they get banged up and
alcoholism and some pretty and to I guess pull up to the 10,000-foot view, kind of the difference between DC and Marvel at the base of it anyway. DC was always fantasy. I don't know if you can go back and reread like the original comics from the 1930s like I did when I was a kid. You could check out from the library that is big thick like 3-inch 4-inch thick book that was the first 4 or 5 years of Batman reprinted. First 4 or 5 years of Superman reprinted. I loved those when I was a kid, but the Superman stuff is so hokey, so corny, and so throwaway for little kids. And by the way, Superman can't fly, leap tall buildings in a single bound. He could jump really high.
It took him a couple of extra years to figure out how to keep the propulsion going.
He couldn't fly. That's one of my problems with Superman. Exactly, propulsion. What force is making him fly? Like we understand.
Well, he's got heat vision for God's sakes and super strength. None of it makes sense. Come on.
Exactly. And yet Batman could kind of exist in the real world. He's a human with stuff.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff that isn't real. Whatever. I used to watch Mythbusters a lot. They built like the cable gun. Guess what? I mean, they got it to go up. They never thought of a mechanism to release or to go down and stuff. And the amount of cable that you need, the speed of it, like forget it. Not realistic.
Well, I think, again, back up at the 10,000 level view, I think my overall thought about this is, this is no big surprise. The Marvel stuff, I'm thinking about the movie end of it. I mean, they've got such an incredibly established universe, and watching DC thrash to get caught up, thrash badly, it looks like, in my opinion, just kind of, on one hand, I'm like, geez, it'd be great to see them figure out where the slipstream is with the DC thing to make it work. The other thing it makes me think of is, man, what an incredible piece of work that Marvel has managed to thread this needle so incredibly across the board and continue to do so. I mean, it's just, I hope DC can pull it out and actually start to make their franchises work, because it's more fun stuff for us to watch, but I just don't see it right now.
There's a picture out there, and you can't see it very clearly because you'd be able to read the whiteboard. There's a giant whiteboard at Marvel where they have a timeline that goes through from the first Iron Man on, and it connects all this stuff like way back when someone was thinking about what happens in the third Avengers movie now that I'm writing the first Iron Man movie. What? Yes, they did that. DC, you know what? We were talking about the Wonder Woman movie. Do you know what they did? They put out a casting call for writers and said, okay, 10 writers, everyone write me a Wonder Woman script. We'll take the best one. That's what they did.
Yeah.
How the fuck does that tie into anything else? It doesn't. They're just a grab bag of trying to get the best. The trouble is Marvel characters were always based on flawed people. Iron Man, alcoholic. Spider-Man, public doesn't like him. He's a kid, doesn't have any money. Daredevil, alcoholic. Problems with the law practice. Like every character has flaws. They're real people. They're humans. DC was never that way. It was always, bright and sunny and Work with what you got. Make those bright and sunny movies. Stop trying to make Superman dark. It's not dark.
Like I said, let's get Zack Snyder out of the seat.
Yep.
Anyhow, so I think we've beaten that one to the ground a little bit. In fact, I think we've beaten every topic into the ground this evening. This is a masterful episode of pointless opinions and what the fuck are we talking about?
Fewer hosts and more talking somehow.
Yeah, pretty much. Clearly, we need Stefan and Doug to reel us in. So, which is going to happen next episode. We're going to have everybody back on board. We'll have some fun hearing about some travel plans and things like that. And actually, at that point, I'll be back from Austin. I'm about to take off to Austin for a long weekend. So episode 6 may in fact be the full-on travel episode. Fuck all this nerdy stuff. We're going to be talking about different places people are going to, perhaps.
Dude, you going to Franklin's Barbecue?
I don't know. Haven't figured it out yet. Just going to go there and get the hell out of Dodge for a little bit. Nice. But I'll keep that in mind. Franklin's Grill, right?
Yeah, barbecue. Well, plan a couple hours. Like the line is very, very, very long.
I'm too old to do lines. God damn it. I need to know somebody who can get me in the back door.
Not at Franklin's. I've been to Austin Iron Works Barbecue. That was pretty good. Not too far from the Congress Street Bridge.
Cool. We'll compare notes later. Anyhow, so this is going to do it for episode 5 of Geek Tangent. And you know who I am and you know who he is. You can find us on Facebook. If you do a quick search for Geek Tangent, we have a lovely little page there. We're also posting stuff on Twitter these days. You can find us at geek_tangent. You can email us, of course, at contact@geek-tangent.com. And if I didn't know any better, I'd say we were somewhere on YouTube too, right?
We are. We have a channel. It is Geek Tangent Podcast on YouTube.
And we're on SoundCloud as well. So there's, and iTunes, of course. So there's really no excuse not to be listening to us. So get off your ass and listen to us. If you feel like it, write us a review on iTunes. I know every podcast you listen to says that, but in truth, it is kind of the only way that people start to notice podcasts is by getting reviewed on iTunes so that they get up in the rankings. So feel free to review us, subscribe, and by all means, the most important thing is to pass us along to friends, even if you don't care about the shit. Frankly, if you've made it this far, then you must like what we're talking about. But feel free to pass us on to others and spread the word. Until then, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. This is Geek Tangent episode 5 with just Keith and Chris. Since the other guys aren't here, I'm okay with saying we're the only two that really matter, but don't let them know that. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Yep. Take it easy.
And I'm sorry, next week I won't talk.
Yeah, da 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 da.